guys, I'm back again. I'm making Irish soda bread, and a lot of you asked for me to make a recipe for bread. And because we have St. Patrick's Day coming up and we need something fun to do right about now, I thought let's make some Irish soda bread. It's really easy, does not require yeast. And so if you don't make bread, this is a great starter to try. Most Irish soda bread uses buttermilk. We are not going to use buttermilk, but we're going to use buttermilk. So first of all, hands up if you know how to make buttermilk without having buttermilk. So what we're going to do right away here, we want 1 cup of buttermilk. We're going to take regular milk and vinegar, and we're going to put them together. So we're going to put in 1 cup of milk, and we're going to put in about 2 tablespoons of vinegar. I'm going to eyeball it. Don't eyeball it. Measure it. I've done this so many times that I can eyeball it. And what that's going to do is that's going to curdle up this milk and basically give us buttermilk without having to actually have it in our house. So we're going to set this aside, and it's going to do its thing while we're working on the rest of our stuff. Okay, so first things first, you want to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. I just started that on mine. You're going to use a cookie sheet. You could use a skillet, a cast iron skillet, whatever you want. This is a free form bread. So a free form bread means you just form it, you plop it, you bake it. You don't have to have a proper pan. Again, brilliant if you do not bake or make bread. So I'm going to spray this really well though. I want to make sure it's really well greased. And I'm just going to set this aside until we need it. All right, and now what we're going to do is put together our dough. Hi, Rick. You love Irish soda bread. Yes, I do too. Send you the recipe. All right, you got it. This Irish soda bread will not have raisins or currants in it. I actually really like it with raisins though. So if you like raisins, a lot of soda bread has raisins. So you would take like a cup of raisins, put them, when you make your buttermilk, put those raisins in water so they're plumping up while we're doing all the rest of this. And then when you go to put your milk in, and after that, you're going to put your raisins in, just simply drain out that water and you'll have nice plump raisins for your bread. But I'm not going to use raisins today because my son and my husband don't like them. So we're gonna skip the raisin part of it. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our flours, our sugars, and our baking powders. We're gonna use about 2 cups of flour. You could use a gluten-free flour, but it's frankly, because this is a simple bread recipe, that if you've never made this recipe before, if you've never made soda bread, stick with traditional flour. I know that's not great if you're gluten-free. So you're going to have to kind of play with that a little bit, but it can be tricky to make this one gluten-free. So we're going to put 2 cups in. If you use a scale, it's always better to use a scale, but this is a pretty forgiving recipe. It's really simple. And when you find that it's too dry, you're going to add a little more milk. If it's too wet, you're going to add a little more flour. So it's a nice forgiving recipe. All right, so we have our flour. We're going to put about 1 tablespoon of sugar in. Not too much sugar, but we need that sugar in there to help the gluten in the flour do its business. How to get my tablespoon? I don't like to guess on the sugar. I have 1 tablespoon of sugar. I have 2 cups of flour in here, and then of course we need our salt. We're going to put in about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You have to have salt in bread. Like it makes everything just pop, makes it really good. And then of course, don't forget the baking soda. That is actually how this bread gets its name, is that it uses baking soda as its rising agent rather than yeast. We're putting 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda in here. So it doesn't use traditional yeast, but it does use baking soda, and that's why it's called soda bread. And then we're just going to give this a little stir, like so. And we're going to wait a little bit for, hang on a sec, for the milk. You guys can't see that, can you? It's starting to curdle on top, but I want to give it a little bit more time to curdle up. So I'm going to talk to you guys for just a little bit while it does its business. About 10 minutes is about how long you want it to curdle. So it just depends on how long it's going to take you to do this. So right about now, we are done. Like, we have all of our ingredients in here. It's just going to be a matter of putting that in here, stirring it, working it, and baking it. That's it. This bread is really, really inexpensive, really easy. Definitely, if you've never made bread before, give this one a try. A lot of people say it has a similar flavor to sourdough bread. I don't find that to be true, but maybe that's just me. But it does have a fairly dense texture. So it's not like your traditional homemade white bread that you're going to use for sandwiches. It's not like that. So we're just going to let this curdle just a little bit longer. Did you guys pop in this morning? I showed you guys how to use dried beans this morning. And then last night, my husband and I made roasted cauliflower soup, which was so good. We ate almost all of it gone. We only had a tiny little bit left that I froze. But I think I need to make more of that. It was so good. All right, I'm going to call this good because you guys are waiting on me. I would still recommend that, if you make this at home, can you guys see this? It's all curdly on top. There you go. You can kind of see that. If you're making this at home, try to make sure you give it about 10 minutes to sit and curdle. But we're going to call that good so that I can move along. So what we're going to do, you're going to kind of make a well in your flour. Can you see that? And slowly, we're going to stir this in. We're going to start with just a little bit of it and slowly stir it in. We don't want to overwork our bread. Oh, it's just chunky. And if you are going to use raisins or currants, you're not going to put it in yet. Wait for your raisins and currants until the very last step. Very last thing you're going to add is your raisins. It's starting to come together. You guys see that? Now I'm going to just kind of pull it against the side of the bowl. Just going to keep working this in. I'll just gently work it in. Pretty soon we are going to be getting our hands dirty. Fair warning. If you don't like that, look away. How many of you guys have made, first of all, how many of you have made bread? And how many of you have made soda bread? Not very many people have made soda bread. It's not one of the first ones you lean towards, but it is very easy. Now, this dough is very wet, and I don't want you to freak out about that. It is supposed to be very wet. You're going to get messy. What you can do, I'll show you a little trick here. All right, so I just stirred it enough that everything is put together. I'm going to stop right there. I am going to use a parchment paper because with everything going on, just makes me feel more comfortable using parchment paper on my surface. I'm going to flour the parchment paper really well. Really well floured surface. Don't be scared of that. Then I'm going to take this dough and I'm going to just plop it on to the surface, just like that. It's really wet, you guys. I know it's wet. Okay, it's going to be wet. Now, if you don't want to touch it like this, which you're going to get your hands dirty at some point, why not? You can use your spoon to kind of knead at it a little bit like this and use your spoon to help with that process. Make sure you kind of push down like you would if you were kneading it for real. But I am going all in. So we're gonna go all in here. So you're gonna knead this. It's gonna be wet, you guys. Keep kneading it until it forms a nice dough. It's getting there, you guys. You can see I'm starting to be able to pull it up. You're gonna get your hands dirty. If you have children, they're gonna be more than happy to help you with this part. just keep going at it. It's gonna be okay. It's messy, but you're gonna be okay. We're gonna just keep putting that flour in there. If you wanted to, you can add a little bit more flour when you're making your dough. I don't like to do that because I find that my natural instinct is to always add more flour than I should. And when I'm doing it this way, although it's really messy, it's not going to get as overworked as it can be if you add flour in the dough itself. So instead, we're just going to get messy. Do it this way. There we go. Starting to get a little bit of a dough going on there. There we go. It's really slimy. But it totally works. And if I didn't have the parchment paper on here, it'd probably be a little bit easier because I'm kind of having to hold this parchment paper. But I prefer to use the parchment paper than going on. There we go, guys. We have a dough. Then going on my straight counter right now. You know, all that other stuff going on. And I did wash my hands really well before we started. So everybody knows that. Okay. So then you're just going to sit there, knead it a few more times. Don't knead it too many times because we don't want to overwork it. There we go. All right, and then we're just going to form it into a ball like so. Get a knife. Let me see if this might not be done quite well enough. Hang on. Let's see if we can get this to. So we're going to cut an X right down the center. And why do we cut an X down the center? And that is so that the dough can release steam as it's cooking, and it will cook the center better. Otherwise, the center will not cook correctly, and you'll get a raw dough. We don't want that. And if you can see, I'm keeping flour on my knife so it doesn't get sticky and it cuts the way it's supposed to. There we go. So then what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to take this and plop it right onto the pan. It's going to go in the oven for 30 minutes and bake. And that's the end of it. And I will show you what this looks like later on when I'm doing another live later today. But you will have a beautiful loaf of bread, and you just have a few ingredients and a little bit of a mess, and you'll be good. All right, you guys, I'm going to wash my hands and shut this thing off. I'll see you later today. Hope you have a great Saturday. Adios. And